Okay, so we are back and we are still working our way through Genesis, first book of the Bible. We are in chapter 37. I'm going to try and put the whole thing together because this is Joseph's journey. And it starts off with Jacob, his father, is living in the land of Canaan. Canaan is the land that God told Abraham to walk through. So Abraham walked through it. Then his son Isaac, in turn, walked through it. And then his son Jacob has now returned to this land and is living in this area and is raising his children there. So he has reunited with his brother. They have all stood together and they just buried their father. And so they are kind of existing in the same space together. So it starts off chapter 37, verse 1, with Jacob living in this land. And it talks about these are the generations of Jacob. In verse 2, when it marks that, it's letting us know that we are now not focusing on Jacob's story so much anymore. We are focusing now on the stories of his children as their lives start to unfold as adult men and moving into the future of the Israelites and how these tribes came to be. And so when Joseph is 17, Joseph is one of his sons. It is the first son that he has with Rachel, the wife that he loved. This is the son that he kind of wanted because she was infertile for so many years. And this is his favorite kid. And so when Joseph was 17 years old, he was out with his brothers, the sons of Zilpah and Bilhah. So he's out with his brothers. They are feeding the flock. There are other brothers in other places. There is a sister who is doing something different. There are moms all over the place. But he's out with his brothers, and apparently they do some stuff they're not supposed to be doing. So when he comes home, he snitches. He snitches. And it says in at the end of verse 2 that he brings his father their evil report. He snitches. He comes back and he says, my brothers was doing this out in the field. My brothers were doing these things. And so I'm certain that they somehow were punished for this. And in verse 3, it says that Israel loved Jacob more than all his children. His name bounces between Israel and Jacob, and we're going to see it a lot. It is the same person. But he says that he loved Joseph more than he loved any of his other children. He gave him a coat of many colors. This is something that we've probably heard a bunch of different times in a million different ways. This is one of those stories that we hear in like Sunday school and children's church as kids. There's like play adaptations, Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat. But Joseph was given a gift from his father. A coat of many colors is very important and significant because they have to make these dyes. They have to make this fabric. They're not just out here with, these fast moving spindles and machines and robots that are doing all this stuff. They are literally pressing leaves and different fruits to create these dyes. They are making these dyes, and they would have to be very careful about dyeing it if it's many colors because they don't want it to all bleed together. So this is a pretty expensive jacket that took some time and some handcrafting. He's given this gift to one son when he, in fact, at this point has 12. He has 12 sons and he's gifting one. Now, Rachel, the wife, the mother of Joseph, has 2 sons. There's Joseph and there's Benjamin. Benjamin is younger, much younger than his brother. And so these gifts are being given, but they're being given in front of sons who were born to the first wife and are much older, much more capable, have been with him longer, and are entitled to a birthright, entitled to some level of significance because of their age and their position. But he loves Joseph the best, and so he gives him the nice, pretty coat when he doesn't give it to anybody else. And so in verse 4, it says, when they saw that their father loved him more, they hated him. And they couldn't speak peaceably to him, meaning they couldn't be peaceful. They didn't want to talk to him nice. This ain't my brother. I don't like him for real. My dad favors him so much that he gets treated differently than us. And that felt unfair to them. So instead of, dealing with it in a way that probably would have made the brothers work things out together, they dealt with it so that they hated this brother. Me personally, I think that Joseph may have been used to this preferential treatment, and he may have sat in a little bit and been kind of a jerk a little bit, because he was snitching on people. So when you come from a large family, you typically kind of stick together. And it don't seem like he playing with the team too much. I think he has gotten used to this elevated position and feels like maybe this is his right. And I'll kind of explain why I feel that way as we go. So in verse 5, Joseph has a dream. And it says when he told it to his brothers, they hated him the more. Not that when he interpreted his dream, not that there's not a conversation in here where it says, how this was handled. So I want to point something out. In verse 6, he tells him, hey, listen to me. I want to tell you my dream. In verse 7, he says, we were out binding sheaves. This is typically when there's a harvest. You cut down these big stalks of wheat, you bind them all together and make a sheaves. So you have these kind of really thick, like we see bales of hay sometimes now. I live near farms, but I don't do farming. So they would have these kind of big sheaves or like stacks of this harvested grain or barley or things like that. And they would put it all together so it's easy to move, carry, manipulate, break down, all that stuff. And so they were in the field, they're binding all these sheaves, and the one that he bound stands up, and all the others bow to him. So this is a dream, this is metaphorical, this is a, kind of pretty thing that he's seeing, it's a vision. It's not in real life that the stalks of wheat like bent themselves in half and this happened. This was a dream. And it says that they bowed or they made obeisance, depending on which version of the Bible you have. Some say bow, some say worship, but they would bow as in he's royalty, not necessarily that he's God, but that he's royalty or he's important in the way that, somebody might salute when a particular ranking army, armed forces member would come in, or the way that somebody would position themselves if like the president walked in or something like that. So he's saying that he has this position of authority and they are lending themselves to that authority or humbling themselves in front of it. And it says in verse 8, and his brother said to him, will you indeed rule over us or have a dominion over us? And they hated him more for the dreams. Dreams. At this point, he has told them one dream. He has told them one dream and they hate him because of this. But I believe that because it discusses him saying what he dreamed, him telling this, that they hear these dreams and they hate him. Meaning that one, they can interpret dreams the same way he can. Sometimes we can do things and it's something that we're born with. It's something that passes through our family. There are giftings that sit in families and they continue to move on. We like to talk about generational curses, but there are some generational blessings, some generational giftings that happen. You will see it sometimes. We think nothing of it when we have a pastor and one of his sons takes over the church as a dynamic pastor behind him, full of the Spirit, not the people that just take over because they're supposed to take over. The people who are actually selected by God to carry this ministry forward. We don't think it weird when you have a family and their children can sing. Like, it was not unexpected for Erica Campbell's daughter to be on stage. It was not unexpected for her to be able to sing. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, well, she's good too. Like, it's not unexpected for a lot of these kind of big singers, these big voices, to have children who can do the same thing. We think it's okay. Oh, her mama sing. That's why their whole family can sing. We say it all the time. But the giftings aren't just talents that we're used to seeing. This whole family can dance. This whole family can cook. This whole family can interpret dreams. There are generational giftings and talents that work spiritually as well. So, but it says his brothers hated him all the more. They had the same gifting, but not necessarily the same calling and same anointing. They didn't have the same purpose for it. And sometimes we can block our own situations. We can put ourselves in spaces where we're not able to do what it is that God would have us to do because we are so stuck on what somebody else got. So don't let what somebody else has, don't let what somebody else is doing, don't let whatever, God is working out of or working into a person dictate your future. So, verse 9, here is another dream that Joseph has. And Joseph has another dream. He tells his brothers, and he said, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars are going to worship or bow down to me, basically. And he tells his father. And his father says, I don't think that's finna happen, friend. He rebuked him. He was like, You didn't got the big head. Now, when you was out here telling your brother something crazy, I thought it was cool. But when you turned around and said something crazy to me, like I'm going to bow down to you, that had to be foolishness. I wish I would. I wish I would. And he said, so even me and your mother, we both going to bow down? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And so his brothers get filled more and more with hatred and envy. They allow this anger to sit in their heart. Remember when Cain and Abel were at the point of sacrifice and worship. Cain allowed his anger, his hurt feelings. He allowed what was on the inside of him to take over, and it did not heed the warning of God. His brothers right now are just getting angrier and angrier and angrier, and they're letting it sit in there. Not saying, hey, bro, could you chill out on the dreams? Because, like, we can interpret dreams, too. Like, we have dreams as well, and we're not out here doing this to you. Don't try and mistreat us because you think you got something special. And I don't know where God told him to tell his brothers what he dreamed. I didn't see anywhere in here where God was like, hey, tell your brothers what I showed you, because I want everything ain't for everybody. Everything isn't for everybody. But God understands who you are and what you're going to do when he factored your stupid into it. And this right here is proof. Like, his path starts with him sharing these dreams. And so, in verse 12, his brothers go out to feed the flock. They're like, we're not fooling with him. We're not taking him. He always want to tell on us. He always want to be a snitch. So he's not coming out here. He ain't going to have nothing to tell because he ain't going to be with us. And so he goes out to find his brothers. His brothers are out feeding the flock. They are being shepherds out in the fields. And he goes to find them. And Jacob or Israel tells Joseph, hey, I know where they are. Go to your brothers and check on them. See if they are all right. He said, go be a spy. Tell me what they're up to. He said, go check on your brothers and see what they're doing and come back. They're up in Shechem. And that's the space where stuff went bad. And there's this whole city that's now been destroyed. They taking a flock up there. Go check on them and see what's going on. See what they're doing and tell me about it. And in verse 15, it says, a certain man found him. And behold, he was wandering in the field, and the man asked, what seekest thou? We're not going to be afraid of King James. Let's break it down. So he's on his way to go find his brothers. He is traveling alone at this point to go find his brothers. On the way there, he runs into a man, a random person. And this random person asks him, what you looking for? Why are you out here? What you looking for? And his answer to him in 16 is, tell me where my brothers are. They came out here to feed the flock. You know where they set up shop? Because I'm certain that a bunch of guys and a bunch of sheep are going to be noticeable if somebody's out here walking past. Oh, yeah, they right up there. I saw them, a couple miles back. So that's what he's asking for. Do you know where my brothers are? And so he answers him and says, hey, let's go to this place where they are. They're no longer in Shechem. They're in Dothan. And I want you to go here and you'll find them. I believe this man is an angel who ensured that he would meet the place where he was supposed to go. His story was unfolding. Had he gotten to Shechem and not seen his brothers, he'd have turned around and went back and gave a report to his father and probably sat down, had him a little sip of water, a drink. I don't know what he would have done. He would have went back to his father. He may have continued to wander. He may have met some mishap or some harm wandering by himself. I believe that God placed an angel there to direct him to where he needed to be, because God understood where he needed to go. God knew the plan for his life. God knew these dreams that he gave him meant something, and he had to get him to that place. So God sent somebody to give him directions to where he was supposed to be. Not where he was sent to, but where he was supposed to go. Okay? So, in verse 18, his brothers see him coming. And it says, even before he got to him, they conspired. They had already gotten together, had a little huddle, and was like, look, when he get here, we're going to kill him. At this point, he'd been traveling by himself. Daddy don't know where he at. we got plausible deniability. We can make this thing look good and we can get rid of him. Then we got to worry about his dreams. We don't have to worry about daddy thinking that he's special. We don't have to worry about him being lorded over us or treating us some type of way. No more problems. Just get rid of him. Because when you let that hatred sit in your heart, even the people who are supposed to be family, who are supposed to be protected by you, you can't protect, because this starts to take over. It starts to eat you up. That anger and that hatred blocks out who they are. And so they say in verse 19, behold, the dreamer cometh. They're teasing him because he thought he had something special. I think he was a little cocky. I think that him telling his brother these dreams when they were unprompted, especially when he knew they didn't like him, was him being a jerk. Hey, guess what I dreamed? Y'all was going to bow down to me one day. Y'all don't like me? That's cool. My daddy do. My daddy going to put me. He didn't understand why. He just knew it was a good thing, and he was bragging on it before he understood the cost. And so they decide they're going to kill him, and then it says how they're going to do it. We're going to kill him and cast him to a pit, and then we're going to tell daddy that he got devoured by an animal, a fox, a wolf, a bear, a lion, whatever it is, jumped out and got him, and we couldn't save him. And so they had a plan for how they were going to do this. They was going to get rid of his body, and what they were going to tell their dad when they got back home. And so Reuben, who is the oldest of the brothers, Reuben heard it and said, let's not kill him. Let's just put him in the pit. That pit y'all talked about, let's go ahead and throw him down here. He's going to be trapped. He can't get away. And, then whatever happens to him, but it's not blood on our hands. We're not going to kill him. If we just leave him out here to the elements, he'll figure it out or something will happen, but we won't be responsible. And so he says that in verse 23, when Joseph got to his brothers, they took him out of his coat, that coat of many colors, because that's an identifiable thing. If you got a favorite jean jacket, you got a favorite hoodie. I got a favorite hoodie today. If you got, something, a pair of sneakers that you always wear, this is the identifiable thing. This is the thing that's just your trademark. It's like that coat of many colors. And so they took it from him and they threw him into a pit with no water. A pit with no water is not a well, meaning they attempted to dig a well and it didn't work. There was a pit that you kind of put stuff down in storage so it's safe from people coming by and seeing what you have. It's a way to store things, like, a little hole in the ground. So they drop him down in this pit with no water. So at this point, somebody has to come back to rescue him or he will die. You can't survive without water. And it says in verse 25, and they sat down to eat bread. These jokers just sentenced their brother to life. And sentenced their brother to death. And that's only after one of the brothers, Reuben, tried to save his life by putting him in this pit. And they sat down to have a snack. They was like, throwing him in that pit worked up an appetite. I got to eat something or, get my energy back. And so I think it's really rude. It's kind of laughable at how callous they have become because of their jealousy and their anger, because their father had played favorites and had put his sons against each other. That right there is it's a little laughable because we honestly do it still. We still got that favorite kid and we still kind of overdo it for that kid sometimes. And you got to be careful because look at what you do to the other children who are sitting and watching and knowing that they are just as honorable, just as worthy, just as necessary and needed, and how much they need you. You got to be careful about playing favorites. Don't do that. So they are sitting down and had themselves a little meal, and they see a group of Ishmaelites. Ishmaelites are just the descendants of Ishmael, who is their uncle. And so they see him and they're coming and they have all types of things. Like they've loaded down their cart. They have gone out and they've done some trading with some cities and towns and other areas. And they are coming back in and they have all this stuff. So they're like, hey, y'all getting ready to go down to Egypt to do a little trading? Y'all getting ready to get rid of some stuff? Cool. Could you take our brother? I bet you want to buy him. Don't you want to buy him? And in verse 26, Judah comes up with this idea. We don't gain anything if we kill him. We get rid of him. We lose something, a nuisance, but we don't gain anything. But if we sell him, we get some money. And so they all agree to sell him. And that way, we don't hurt him. We don't kill him. It's just whatever happens at this point. It is in God's hands now. This is basically what they're doing. And so as they are, so they sell him to the Ishmaelites. And so those Ishmaelites continue to travel. And as they pass, they pull him out. They give him 20 pieces of silver. And they purchase him and they bring him to Egypt. Reuben comes back later. Reuben is not aware that they have sold him off. Reuben comes back later and doesn't see him in the pit and tears his clothes. He begins to mourn because he's like, what in the world did y'all do? Like, I said put him in the pit because he had planned to come back and save his life. He had planned to come back and get him out of the pit and bring him back home so he was safe. He just needed to let the brothers cool off. And in this moment, that's not what happened. They sold him, and so he comes back to see if it's okay, and he's gone. And so he tears his clothes. When it says that he rent his garment, he tears his clothes because that is a sign of mourning. And it is a sign that he is distressed. And he is really distressed at this point because he didn't mean for any of this to happen. And so they took Joseph's coat in verse 31 and they killed one of the goats. And they dipped it in the blood so that it could look like that he had been devoured by some animal. That this is his blood on his coat. And they have a way of kind of explaining away what happened to this missing son of his. And so they bring it to their father. And they come back and they ask this question. They act real dumb. And they say, this we have found. Whether, know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. They came to him and said, we found this coat. Do you know if this is your son's or not? You don't know your brother's coat. You don't know your brother's coat. So they came to him and said, is this your son's coat? Not, is this Joseph's? Not, is this our brother's coat? But do you know if this your son's coat? They're still so callous and so angry. They couldn't even get past that to even call him their brother. They've completely and totally disregarded him being a person as part of their family and their responsibility. They call each other brothers, but they don't count him in and include him. And in verse 33, sorry, I got the stutters. It says he knew it. It said, it's my son's coat. An animal has devoured him, and Joseph is in no doubt in pieces. He's like, I know for certain my kid's gone. And he would not be without this coat. And so Jacob tore his clothes and put sackcloth on and mourned for his son for many days. And his sons and his daughters rose to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. He said, I will go down into the grave mourning my son. He had fully intended to spend the rest of his life distraught and destroyed and grieving this child. If you have ever experienced anything like losing a kid, if you understand that grief don't just get up and go away. That thing sit with you for a good long time. When you have the news of something happening, not even that you have the ability to prepare. Sometimes if you have a child that has a sickness, you have some time to kind of wrap your mind around it, to accept that this is inevitable and it's going to happen. And you can kind of start to make things make sense. But when you get hit with it because something happened and boom, it's just gone, and you didn't get the opportunity to do all the goodbyes. You didn't get the opportunity to kind of face it before, prepare for it. It takes you out. It takes you out, and he's out. He's like, for the rest of my life, this is it. I'm just gonna mourn for the rest of my life. Don't ever think I'm gonna be happy again, because it's not gonna happen. I don't have my wife, and now I don't have my son. These are the two people that I prayed for. These are the people that I work for. This is what I wanted. All the rest of this is extra, but this is the thing that I wanted. This was the desire of my heart, and they're both gone. And so he was like, nah, I'm out. And planned to just go be a crazy person and fall off the planet. And so in verse 36, we see where Joseph lands. And it says that the Midianites, so the Ishmaelites sold him to the Midianites, and the Midianites took him to Egypt. And once they got to Egypt, Potiphar is an officer in Pharaoh's army. He has now gone from favorite son, hated brother, in the pit, slave, transferred slave, to now a slave in the house of one of the officers of the Pharaoh, of the king. So he is starting to, it looks like it's starting to look like it's getting to be good. And he's the captain of the guard. So this is like high ranking military official. He is literally one of the next in command, like first in command for the Pharaoh or the king of Egypt. So that is all of 37. This is like Joseph's journey. So we're going to recap and then move out of here and get into the next video. So Joseph's brothers, they don't like him. The father favors them and starts to give him preferred things. He gave him a preferred hat. He got an easier job. The brothers are out in the field working the flock, and he is at home being asked to go check on them and come back and bring a report. He snitches on them. He does all types of things. And then he starts to have these dreams. And these dreams he has is one that they're in the field and his sheaf of wheat stands and the others will bow to him. And then he has a dream that the sun, the moon, and 11 stars all bow to him. And he was like, and so every time they heard it, they were like, I don't know about this. This feels like not right. This feels like you really think that we're going to bow to you at some point, that you're going to be greater than us. And these are his older brothers. And even his father is like, we're not getting ready to do that. You're not that special. And so one thing I pointed out is that it seems like he's a little bit of a jerk. Like, he's not saying, Dad, treat me like my brothers. He's not saying, Dad, I can't wear this coat because my brothers didn't get something, or any of those things. He's just wearing it proudly. Yeah, I got one. He's having these dreams, and it doesn't say that God told him to tell his brothers. And he shares it with them. But it also does not say that he had to interpret it for them. The brothers could interpret the dreams and understood what they meant. Though there are some giftings that are for everybody. There are some giftings that his family had that he inherits with them. So he has these dreams, and the brothers are out in the field one day. He is sent by his father to go check on them, see what they're doing, and give them a report. Hey, I want you to go spy on your brothers and bring me back a report. And so when they're coming, these brothers have hated him because he's just had this favorite position. He's gotten the best of everything. His father loves him more than he loves all the other brothers, and they don't like it. And so they see him coming, they're like, let's kill him. So they all together was like, yeah, that feels like the right thing to do. And so one of the brothers says, let's not kill him. Let's just put him in a pit. We'll think about it, see what's going to happen, and we'll revisit this later. And so they take his coat from him, throw him into a pit, and it's a big hole in the ground. And so he's sitting in there with no water, like whatever's happening happens. And so the brothers go and they take a break. They can sit down and have a little lunch. The brother whose idea it was to put him in the pit is Reuben. He is away from the brothers as they decide, we don't gain anything from killing him. So let's sell him into slavery, then we can get some money. And they actually sell him into slavery for 20 pieces of silver. And so he comes back. So Reuben, the oldest brother, comes back and he's like, nah, friends, what happened to our brother? He's not in this pit. So he wasn't part of the sell him into slavery game, because his plan was to come back and rescue him and bring him back home to his father. But when he realizes the pit is empty and that they've done something to him, he tears his clothing and goes into mourning. So they take the coat of many colors that Joseph was given, dip it into the blood of a lamb that they kill, and bring it home to their father, and was like, hey, ain't this your son's coat? And still very cold and callous about it. Do not care at all that this brother is gone. They had some money in their pockets and they kept it moving. And their father is literally destroyed. And he says he's going to spend the rest of his life mourning this son. He is destroyed. His absolute favorite. His world is crushed and gone, and he don't have no more left. And so Joseph is actually sold to some Ishmaelites who trade him to some Midianites, who in fact bring him to Egypt, where he joins the household of the chief guard for Pharaoh. So who a high ranking military official in the Pharaoh's army. And so that's how he gets to Egypt and gets near Pharaoh. We're going to talk through the rest of his journey in the next video. All right, y'all. Y'all be blessed.